If you're like me, you've probably always wondered what the difference is between, say, a half-ton pickup truck and a 3/4-ton pickup truck. And luckily, this week, I have the chance to look at both. We're taking a look at what makes an F-150 different from a Ford F-250. This here in front of me is a 2019 Ford F-150 Limited. It doesn't really make a difference between 2020 and 2019, but the big change is for the 2020 F-250 Super Duty that's behind me that received a teeny tiny update for this model year, so it's good for us to be able to feature these two to go over what's different between them. Kind of think of this as Heavy Duty Truck 102. You can watch the first episode that we did about a year ago today, going over some of the basic information you need to know if you're getting your feet wet when it comes to heavy duty trucks. So today we're going to be talking about some of the more mechanical differences between these two vehicles, and this information applies across the board whether it is a Ford, GM, or FCA product. Now you have to keep in mind that neither of these two vehicles compete directly against each other because the F-150 is a limited, the F-250 is a platinum. The trims are different, and also the F-250 that we have here has the trimmer package, so it's more for off-road, and really the F-150 Raptor doesn't really compete with the F-250 Tremor. But the idea is we've got these two trucks here. We're going to be going over the fundamentals between what in this case, a platinum from either one would be with the diesel engines, because the Limited comes with the high output 3.5 liter EcoBoost engine, and this Super Duty here has the 6.7 liter Power Stroke turbo diesel. So why would you go up to an F-250? Well, you have to understand what you're doing with the truck first of all. If you need the payload or you need the towing capabilities, then there is a limit to the F-150. And with this limited F-150, it is more or less the top that you can get, but it doesn't give you the most payload and most towing because there's added weight onto the vehicle. If you were to compare a Platinum versus a Platinum with the diesel, you're going to get more towing, more payload out of the F-250. The other difference too, which is really geeky stuff, is what's available when it comes to the rear axle ratio. That ultimately makes the difference of how much payload or how much towing a vehicle can have. Now there are different configurations depending on the different engine choices out there. Both of these have the 3.55 rear axle. The F-250, F-350, and F-450 can go up to a 4.3:1 rear axle, whereas the F-150 would top out at a 4.1:1, depending on how you configure it. And for the most part, most people who are buying the F-150 are going to get the 3.55. They're going to get the entry level or even the 3.31 when it comes to that rear axle. That rear axle ratio determines how much the actual drive axle turns in relation to how much the wheels turn. So in this case, with the 3.55 on it, the drive axle will turn 3.55 revolutions by the time the rear wheels have made one full revolution. Ultimately, the higher the number, if you go with something like that 4.3:1 ratio, you're going to have more power going to the wheels. Essentially, it's turning more, the wheels are turning less, giving you ultimate power and torque out of it, but you lose out on initial speed, fuel economy, and top speed. So that's why it's so crucial. If you're looking at one of these vehicles, you got to understand what you're towing, what you're hauling, what you need your truck to be able to do to determine which one you should go with. Now these trucks also look somewhat different inside and out. Even though the F-150 created this look and the F-250s copied some of the design traits to it, you could tell that they're from the same family, but that the F-250 just has more girth to it, especially on the outside. It has a taller front and rear end. And I also kind of like the rear end of the F-250 more. It has amber turn signals, whereas the F-150 uses red throughout. Both vehicles have LED headlights. When it comes to the F-150s, the headlight assembly, the top mount light is your regular beam. High beams are on the bottom. It's the reverse on the F-250 when you have the LED headlights. One of the other major differences between the F-150 and the F-250 is the cab and bed configurations. While they both use essentially the same cabs, both inside and out, the way that they're configured is slightly different. When it comes to the half-ton F-150, you can get a single or regular cab with either the 6.5-foot bed or the 8-foot bed. When it comes to the F-250, it's only available as a 6 3/4 or an 8-foot bed. So you could get 8-foot beds for both of those. You go up to the Super Cab, the middle. If you go the Raptor for the F-150, you're looking at a 5.5 foot bed, or the 6.5 and 8 foot for the other trims available. That same 6 3/4 and 8 foot beds are available for the Super Duty. And then when we look at the Crew Cab, which both of these are, you can have the 5.5 foot bed with the Limited that we have here, or 6.5 foot bed with the other trims. And again, when it comes to the Super Duty, you can either have the 6 3/4 or 8 foot bed. So across the board, there are 2 bed configurations for the F-250. There are 3 different ones for the F-150, again, depending on how you configure your cab. The overall weight, the gross vehicle weight of either vehicle makes a big difference. That will ultimately play into the gross combined weight rating, how much you can tow and haul, as well as the actual weight of the vehicle, as well as the gross vehicle weight rating. When it comes to this F-150 as configured, the vehicle weighs 5,320 pounds. This Tremor weighs 7,800 pounds. Big difference in weight there, and that's mostly because of the diesel engine that comes on this. And that brings us to the third and most important, I would say, aspect between these two vehicles are the engine choices available. The F-150 has a wide list of engines, all the way from the 5-liter Coyote V8 engine to this 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6, as well as the 3-liter Power Stroke diesel. When it comes to the F-250, you're pretty much limited to 2 engine choices. This one has the 6.7-liter Power Stroke V8, produces 475 horsepower, 1,050 pound-feet of torque, whereas the F-150 in the diesel configuration, that 3-liter, produces 250 horsepower, 440 pound-feet of torque. Both vehicles do have a 10-speed automatic transmission, and both of them can come either 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. The other engine choices available on the F-250 is the 6.2-liter V8 gas engine. That's the entry level, depending on the trim that you go with. And for 2020, Ford unveiled their new 7.3-liter Godzilla V8. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in a separate video. Pricing is also very different. Compared to these two specific vehicles, a 2020 Ford F-150 is about $84,000 and change when it comes to the MSRP here in Canada. This bad boy, this F-250 with the Tremor, is $97,599. Now, I would skip the Tremor trim, that adds an extra $5,200 or so, but still, I mean, there is a big price difference. If you were to look at the price difference between the F-250 and F-350, it's only about $1,500 to $2,000, depending on how you configure it. So what have we learned here today? There are major differences between these two vehicles, aside from just the looks and how they sit on the road, the F-250 being taller and longer. When it comes to the different engine choices available, none of the F-150's engines are available in the Super Duty, and vice versa. The axle ratios are also different. Even though some of them are the same, you do get a heavier duty axle with the F-250, giving you more payload and more towing capabilities than you could get on an F-150. The total gross vehicle weight of a Super Duty truck is going to be more than an F-150, so if you ultimately need maximum towing or payload capabilities, you are going to have to go up to a Super Duty. I highly recommend going online and doing your research to figure out what exactly you plan on doing with any of these trucks and to determine what you should get. It is recommended, if you are not doing any towing or hauling, not to buy the Super Duty. You're going to be better off with an F-150. And same thing, if you need to do towing and hauling, you might be better off going with the Super Duty instead of putting too much strain and stress on the engine, transmission, and drive axle of an F-150. You need to do your research. You need to understand what you're doing so that you don't have major complications down the road. Now, that's not the end of our heavy-duty truck coverage here on Test Drive. We do have some stuff lined up, including a comparison with the F-250 with the gas versus the diesel engine, as well as what happens when you go up to an F-350 to see what the differences are there, because there are some changes as you go up the Ford F-Series family. If you have any questions about either of these two vehicles, or you want to know more about whether or not you should go up to a Super Duty or stick with a regular duty vehicle, you can leave a comment below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Until next time, thanks for watching and take care.